Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into my instructional rock climbing channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing these 510 Moccasym shoes. They're personally my favorite rock climbing shoes, and I think they work well for a variety of purposes. I've used them for crack climbing down in Indian Creek, where I thought they worked well. They seem to fit nicely and snugly in the crack, conforming to the shape of the crack, so I think they're pretty secure for that purpose. I've also used them for slab climbing, where I think the way that the shoe conforms to the shape of your foot is especially ideal for slab climbing because it puts your toes in a downward position where you can put a lot of your weight on really small footholds. Finally, they're especially good for multi-pitch climbing because they're definitely the most comfortable shoes that I've ever owned. Which I think is because they're made of a leather material which stretches out, but while at the same time maintaining the sort of security and precision in your footwork. So the only areas where I wouldn't really recommend this shoe would be if you're trying to do some really technical bouldering or some very difficult sport climbing. So if you're going up sort of inverted 512 or 513, you might need a more aggressive shoe. If you look at the profile of these, there isn't too much of a curve at the end, so that might not be ideal for those sorts of climbing routes. So next I'm going to try these shoes on and try to give you a better idea of how they fit and why I think they work so well. Alright, so before I slip these on, you may have noticed that there are a few marks on this part of the shoe. I actually cut these marks through the rubber in order to allow that portion of the shoe to stretch a little bit more. I've done this with various different climbing shoes where they're rubbing on one particular part of my big toe and it just feels a little too tight. So I found that, if you're really careful in doing this, you can allow that part of the shoe to stretch more. So let's slip these on and see how they fit. It's pretty convenient. I think that they're slip-ons. They're a little hard to get on at first because they'll be pretty small until they stretch out. So this is what it looks like, and you can see that this leather is actually stretched to fit my toes pretty comfortably. The tips of my toes are actually bending down at the very front of the shoe, which, as I was saying before, allows you to be pretty precise with your footholds. If you're interested in buying these shoes, I'd recommend buying a little bit small. It'll be kind of uncomfortably tight at first, but the shoes typically stretch out about half a size to a full size. So even if they're uncomfortable at first, they should become more comfortable after 4 or 5 times using them for extended periods. In terms of sizing them compared to your usual shoe size, I would go about a size and a half, probably smaller than your typical shoe size. Maybe 2 sizes if it was still not painful to slip them on or not incredibly tight. In terms of affordability and cost, these come in at $125, which is sort of in the mid-range of climbing shoe prices. So you might be able to find something a little cheaper for really beginner shoes, but I think in terms of the best bang for your buck, they're definitely worth it to step it up a little bit and get some really secure feeling shoes. So even if that sounds a little bit expensive, after you get your first pair and figure out what your size is, you can usually find them online for more like $100. So that concludes my review of the Anasazi Moccasym, my favorite general purpose climbing shoe. I definitely recommend them. I've owned 3 pairs throughout my climbing experiences and tried on various different brands of shoes, and I keep coming back to these because they're comfortable and secure, which are my main concerns when I'm climbing. So unless you're doing some really challenging bouldering or some really difficult sport climbing, I think that these are definitely the shoes for you.